life, love, poetry, simplicity. A black cat somewhere over here who is a good friend of mine. Hello, Panther. Hello, boy. Pure sensation. Everything is pure sensation. All sensations are allowed. If resistance to sensation is what's showing up, then that's showing up. It is what it is, and that's fully allowed too. And yet, on this path of self-inquiry, realization, we gradually dissolve resistance more and more. We get deeper and deeper into what is the root of our resistance to pure sensation. The now is always an infinite field of pure erupting sensation cascading through itself, and it's truly a remarkable, astonishing, mysterious, boundless display of light and color and texture, and these words don't say what it is. We don't know what light and color and texture are. So it's a pure, radiant dancingness, a free fall through pure mystery, pure miraculousness. And what is it that causes us to resist that? Why are we not able to open to this miraculousness and just let it be what it is and fully appreciate it as it is without needing to continually project an idea of happiness is somewhere else, there's something better somewhere else, creating fictitious fantasies about a future that never comes, and believing that that is better than this right here, thereby creating a grasping for something else and an aversion, a resistance to what is present now. What is that movement? Can we look really closely at the dynamics of that movement and begin to uproot it? And as you go deeper into this, you discover that a great deal of the foundational root, perhaps the foundational root of that resistance, is the thought of I, the thought that there is a separate individual autonomous me right here who is in some way apart from the universe and can agentically enforce my will upon the universe to create something better than this here now. And that whole movement, that whole experience, again, is what it is. Everything is what it is. All sensations are allowed. All displays are allowed. All kaleidoscopic activity of this freshness is allowed. So nothing's being demonized here. And yet when we start to really put that self-construct, that I, under the microscope, when we start to really look for, well, what is that separate activity that seems to be separate selfing? What is that selfing activity? For one, we do discover that it's a kind of activity that comes and goes. It's not a discrete, permanent entity that persists across time. If we look closely at it, it kind of pops in and out of existence. You know, yourself does not exist when you're in deep, dreamless sleep at night, right? And I think for most of us, there are many moments throughout the day where we're not engaged in selfing, where there's only the bare, naked flow state of whatever activity is taking place. You know, we're just driving, or we're just balancing our checkbook, or we're just creating art, or whatever it is, without making it a self-referential activity of, oh, I'm doing this now, and then I need to do that, and then I need to do that, and I have this big to-do list, and my life sucks, I have all these problems, yada, 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 yada. So that activity of selfing comes and goes. It's not always there. So that's one of the first things to notice, and that's one of the first clues, one of the most primordial clues that the self, the small separate self that we have taken ourselves to be is a fiction in a deep sense, or it is not what we have taken it to be. We've identified as this kind of puppeteer up here in the head, this little homunculus who's somehow the thinker of thoughts and the doer of actions, and who's kind of pulling the levers. But when you look for that homunculus, when you look for that puppeteer, you don't find it. You find this kind of activity of a self-referential thinking structure that has a thought called an I thought at its root, an identification as I, that kind of pops in and out of existence, and that is a continual flurry of sensation and activity, just like everything else, but within its own self-generated, self-referential matrix. That I thought seems completely real, and this all seems completely solid, completely objective, like very important business where I'm this small monkey who has to navigate this big, elaborate labyrinth, this rat race. I got to find my way through this maze. At least that can be the flavor if it's feeling more dystopian. A lot of people are in a space where they're generally quite happy being identified as a separate self. There are actually a lot of, I think, relatively happy people in the world. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, in a deep sense. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's not necessarily a need to look into what I'm talking about if you are fully happy with your life and you're not feeling a deeper calling to discover a more naked, immediate truth of your condition, a more bare, raw, kind of microscopic view of what's really here, moment to moment, what's really going on. But if there is deep dissatisfaction, or if there's just a burning desire for truth, that's usually what drives a certain segment of us to begin inquiring, begin asking, well, who is the one who is suffering? Who is the one who is resisting the now? Who is the one who feels like there's something else other than this now moment and is grasping after it? And when you start to ask that question, and when you start to look very nakedly, very phenomenologically at your moment-to-moment experience, things can begin to unravel in quite a profound way. You can begin to see that no thought is ever true in a deep sense. No thought is ever an accurate encapsulation of whatever this nowness is. Thought is far too low fidelity of a medium, you could say. Trying to pin this ever-shifting nowness down in thought is like trying to take a hammer and nail and hammer down waves that are crashing on the shore of a beach. The waves are just going to continuously morph and shift and evade the apparent encapsulation, the attempt to pin them down. So you start to notice that thought always misses, and that can deepen and deepen and become more and more direct and experiential until you take thoughts less and less seriously, and eventually, when you're ready, when you're ripe for this, you cease to take the I thought itself seriously, and that bubble of I can begin to pop, can begin to be seen through, or can, increasingly dissolve, and you can increasingly experience this freshness, this nowness, as a wholeness that is not happening to me, it's not happening for me, it's not even happening as me. There is no me in a deep, deep sense. Again, words cannot say it, so I don't recommend to overly grasp onto what I'm saying. But essentially, this investigation leads to a kind of release into unknowing, where you no longer know what you are, you no longer know what life is. There is no longer any distinction between you and life. There is just this miraculous, all-encompassing, infinite field of ever-shifting, ever-present freshness, wholeness, vividness, juiciness that is dancing itself with unthinkable, unfathomable precision and marvelousness, orchestrating itself with devastating symphonic beauty as this ever-present display, this boundlessness, this quantum oatmeal self-rearranging and shape-shifting itself through these endless myriad living sculptures. Every moment, a never-before-seen immersive hyper artwork. Every moment, a never-before-seen living hyper tapestry of freshness. And when that movement is increasingly seen through, that movement that reaches for something else, that tries to turn this nowness into just a blip on the radar, just a means to an end, just something I've got to suffer through so that one day I can get to this imaginary future that never comes, that I've been projecting, of something else. Happiness is somewhere else. That movement gets increasingly undercut, increasingly dissolved, increasingly seen through, so that we are then able to truly rest as pure simplicity, the purest simplicity, subtler than the subtle, pure silence, pure simplicity. Thank heavens, pure simplicity, to be no thing. It can sound a little intimidating, but it's actually an incredible relief to not have to be anything at all. To be pure silence, to be pure spaciousness, weightlessness that is waving and dancing and wiggling as all of this luminous, astounding display. And you can have your cake and eat it too, to a great extent in this exploration. Activity continues to occur. You can still do all the things you love, and you're going to love them even more. You're going to be less attached to them, less identified with them, able to savor them even more. You're more fully sensitized to them. They continue to occur. But increasingly, you're just content as this nowness, however it's showing up. This nowness has an intrinsic quality of repose, of equipoise, you could say, and you are that equipoise. There is less and less resistance to what is. So that is the message for today, family. Thank you for listening. Much peace, much love. Much peace, much love. Be well on this infinite adventure. Much love.